Hi there, in this video we're going to look at using CSS to lay out a web page. Right now we have this page. You can see it already has some basic HTML. Things like this navigation list here, it has a couple of headings and some images. Now we're not going to cover how to add HTML text in this video. There is another video here that covers that in more detail. Now, to make this video interesting and to make sure that it's not a million hours long, I've created the first few CSS layout elements already, just to get us started. So let's jump into Dreamweaver and add that predefined CSS sheet to our web page, just to get us going. So I've got my file here open in Dreamweaver. Now for this tutorial, what I'm going to do is instead of working on standard, often that's what it defaults to, we're going to switch it from standard to developer. I've also defined the site here in Dreamweaver to manage the files for this project. To follow along, you'll have to do the same. You can do it up here in Site, New Site. Now there is another tutorial video teaching you site definition if you need a bit of help with that. Okay, so let's add that CSS sheet. So I'm going to put it up here. The CSS sheet always gets listed in the head. Okay, so anywhere between the opening of the head and the closing of the head that has the /. Okay, so anywhere in here, I'm going to tab along just so it looks nice. Now to add the syntax for a CSS sheet, it's quite long. So there's a nice easy trick in Dreamweaver to get it going. You type in link and hit tab, not return. And it pre-fills in all of the syntax that's needed to link to our CSS style sheet. Remember, I've already got one created and that's just going to help us get started. Okay, I'm going to type in S. And you can see there, because I already have it, you see it there. There's my sneaky style sheet. Okay, it's pre-filled it in, and Dreamweaver is quite helpful that way. It goes off and tries to find files that you might need. I was going to click return, check it in the browser. Cool. So that is a really big change, right, from what we had before. Okay, but it's the exact same HTML5 elements. Okay, there's that list that we had, and it was just like a blue bullet pointed list before. Okay, here's that text, but it's been styled. Lower down, there's the intro text that hasn't been styled. We'll do that. Okay, the images have been moved around and resized. Okay, and there's those social icons. Now remember, we've just added this stuff here just to jumpstart the course. We're going to go in now, adjust some of these existing CSS, and after that, we'll go and create our own stuff. Back to Dreamweaver. Now I'm back here at my HTML page. I know that because I'm on this one called source code. And the first bit of styling that we're going to do is going to be to our header, and then we're going to do it to our H1. Now the header element here is a tag that adds structure to HTML. It's predefined in the HTML5 language, and it's designed to be the header area. Basically just the box that's at the top of your page, and normally things like your logo and your navigation live in there. Now it's listed here in my HTML. If I want to style it, say maybe add a background color or give it a height, I need to match this name exactly in my CSS sheet and then style it there. So that's the header. We're going to do this H1 as well. And the H1 tag is used to describe your heading one, okay, which is just the most important heading on your page. We'll style him at the same time. So let's jump to that CSS sheet that I've already made. We do it in the related documents bar at the top. So we're going to click styles-start. Great, and you can see the names are exactly the same. The header matches and H1 matches. And inside these curly braces, these are the CSS properties. And this is stuff I've already made. But what we want to do now is go and change it. Now we're working in code view. I want to see what it's going to look like in a browser as I make my changes. And a great way to do that is use the real-time browser preview. Okay, and you can check this out down the bottom here in Dreamweaver, bottom right. Okay, and you can see this one here. Okay, I'm going to preview it in Google Chrome. Great, so this is the page that I had in Dreamweaver open up in Chrome. And the cool thing about real-time browser preview is that when I make adjustments in Dreamweaver, it's going to automatically adjust in the browser here. Now, working at my desk, what I do is I have two monitors, and I kind of grab this other one and drag it to my other monitor. But because we've got a video tutorial, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to sneakily have Dreamweaver open. Okay, and I'm just going to tuck it in here so we can kind of see it in the background there. So the first thing I want to change is my header. Okay, it is only matching to about 50% of the screen. You can see here, here's my header, and you can see it says the width is 50%. So I'm going to switch this out to 100. Okay, 100 even, and you can see it's pushing out all the way to this side. Perfect. Okay, next thing I want to do is I want to play around with this top because there's some padding at the top here. Okay, 100 pixels, which I don't want. I want to switch this down to 0 pixels. Great, you can see it jumping to the top. In terms of the padding, okay, we're going to change it from 0 to 1.5, and we're going to use EM in terms of the measurement. Now you can use an absolute size like pixels, but eames as a measurement is relative to other things on the page and can give you easier adjustments to varying screen sizes. And the last thing we'll change here is position is set to absolute. Okay, and absolute's one of the fun ones where at the moment you can see if I scroll down, okay, he's absolutely positioned, so he's stuck to the top and scrolls and disappears at the top. And at the moment now, it's super trendy to switch them to fixed. And you can see now when I start scrolling, hey, stuck to the top, he's fixed. Great, next up is let's go and use CSS to style this font here. So up until now, we've used CSS to do the layout. We did the width and we fixed it to the top. Okay, now what we want to do is use CSS, but to style a font. Okay, things like size and color. So let's go do that. So in Dreamweaver, here's my existing H1. Okay, and you can see here's the color. I'm going to go through and change this to FFF, which is white. You can see the little color window pops up. Thanks Dreamweaver. You can drag this around to any color. Okay, and hit return. I'm just going to use FFF for white. Nice. In terms of the text transformation, okay, I want to make it upper. You can see I just typed the word UP, okay, or the letter is UP. It's pre-filled it out for us. So I'm just going to hit return on my keyboard. Okay, just saves you time and make sure the syntax is correct. In terms of the font sizing, it's set to 2 eames. Okay, we're going to set this to a lot bigger, 8.5. Letter spacing, okay, what we're going to do is we're going to make it 0.85 eames, okay, to really separate these out to match our mockup. So that's styling some existing CSS. Let's go and create our own now where there wasn't any before. So first up, what are we going to style? We're going to style this guy here, the intro text. Okay, it's just plain old text sitting in here. So let's style that. First thing we need to do is figure out what it's called. So let's jump back into our HTML, which is the source code here. So click on this and I can find it. It is, there he is there. Okay, so there's the text and he has got a class name of something called intro. So I'm going to style this thing called intro. So let's jump to our CSS. Now to create a class, what we need to do is it needs to start off with a period. Okay, that's the rule of a class. You can see these tags up here don't have that period in front. So it's easy to see in a CSS sheet what is a class and what is a tag. Then we get to name it, okay, and we've called ours intro. And you can call these anything you like, you just can't use spaces. So make sure you use hyphens or underscores if you want to use 2 words. We're just going to call ours intro though to match what we've got in the HTML. Now the rest of the syntax is similar to the tags above. We're going to put in our curly braces. Okay, Dreamweaver fills out the second curly brace for us. Great, I'm going to put a return in. Now we get to tell the class what to do, and all of the parts inside these curly braces are considered CSS properties. And the first thing I want to do is I want to position it using padding. Okay, so you can see I started typing padding and it's pre-filled it out, and I'm going to hit return. Great, and you can see it's put in the colon there. And in terms of the sizings, I'm going to use 12 eames. Okay, and for the top, okay, so it works top and then goes around clockwise. So we're going to use 12, then 6 eames, then 12 eames for the bottom, and then 6 eames for the left. And whenever you're writing CSS properties, you've got to end it with a semicolon. Now let's check this in the browser. There we go, look at that. We've done some CSS, we've credited ourselves, we've matched the class name in our CSS file, and we've added padding. Okay, lots to the top and bottom, and a little bit less to the left and right. So what we can do is we can be a little bit cleverer. What happens is if I only state the top and the right, the box model jumps in and assumes you probably will use the same measurements for the bottom and left. And that is some handsome CSS right there. So that's our first bit of new CSS, and it's called a class. Now what I'd like to do is I'd like to style the text that is inside this. Okay, so let's go back to my source code. Okay, so this is my HTML, and you can see my p tags up here. We styled this class called intro. What I'd like to do is I'd like to style the text that is inside it as well. We'd like to change the fonts and colors and sizes and things. Now I could go into my CSS and just style the p, but what you'll find is p tag is a really commonly used tag and gets used over and over on pages. So if we style this first p tag, the other p tags on the pages will end up changing too. It's not what we want. So what we want to do is be a bit more specific. So we're going to use something called a compound selector. So let's go and do that. I would like to style the p tag, but only the p tag that is inside intro. And what do I want it to look like? Let's check out our Photoshop mockup here. You can see that I need to match the font here, change the color, change the size, and I need to add some space between the lines. And in the text, there needs to be some space between each of these letters. So let's go and see how to write these properties in CSS. So I want to style p tags that are inside intro, and that is called a compound selector. So now what I want to do is add my curly braces. I'll start with the font. You can see I've typed in font F and it's pre-filled it into family, thank you. I'm going to use this font here and make sure you close out any CSS property with a semicolon. Let's check in the browser. You can see there, it's my new font. Let's go finish styling it. We'll use color. Okay, and if you use color by itself, it assumes you mean the font. Okay, we put a little hash there and we can use the color picker. I've got a predefined color value. Okay, so I've got 343144. Remember, N and a semicolon. Text align right there at the top. I'm going to get it to center. Nice, remember, semicolon. We'll do text transform. We did them earlier, remember. Okay, and we're going to use uppercase. Okay, and you can see there, I'm just using my cursor. I kind of half started, and Dreamweaver tries to help me out by giving me lots of options, and it's just so much quicker than writing everything out. You can just use your arrow keys just to scroll down the list and choose uppercase and then hit return. The thing you can't forget is the semicolon at the end. Next is font size. So font S, great. I'm going to use eames again, so we're going to go 2.5 eames, semicolon. What else we got? We've got line height. Okay, let's make that 1.8 eames, and we'll do some letter spacing of 0.325. Nice work. Let's go check them out in the browser. Hey, look at that, pretty. And the cool thing about it is because we're quite specific using this compound selector, it means that only the p tag within this intro section is going to be affected, nothing else. And you, my friend, now are getting the hang of some CSS. Okay, we adjusted some existing stuff, then we created our own nice easy class. Remember, had a period at the front. Now we've created a compound selector. Super advanced, but not that hard, right? Great, so we've created our own CSS for this page, but you'll notice there is already some existing CSS made earlier for this project. It's just so that we don't have to start from the complete beginning. Let me show you the existing stuff here in Dreamweaver. You can see this is the stuff we've been working on, but you can see down the bottom here, sneaky, I've got a bunch of other stuff already going to style the rest of the site. So there's some other things going on. And if like this, you inherit a site and you're working on it and you're really just not too sure about some of these CSS properties, say you're not too sure what display block means, okay, you can right click it and you can go down to something called Quick Docs. So this is new for Dreamweaver, and you can see here it tells you what the display element is and the various properties that you can use with it. Display here, along with float, are fundamental concepts for CSS layout, and a good understanding of these are super important. So if you are new and you're unsure what some of these CSS properties are, you just have to right click and use Quick Docs. Nice. Now my favorite new feature is something called Quick Edit. So let's go into source code here, okay, and we're gonna work with the footer. So let's preview in a browser. The footer here has everything left aligned. Let's check at the mockup. You can see the mockup here has part of it to the left and part of it to the right. So let's go and do that. We're gonna look at something called float along with Quick Edit. So here's my footer and there's my credit. That's the thing I want to float to the right where it says web design by. Okay, now I could now just note, like we did for our intro box at the top, as we said, okay, intro, we went over to here and we typed in period and then intro and filled it in. But there is a quicker way. Watch this. I can right click this thing called footer credit, okay, and I can go and call Quick Edit. And it says to me, there is no rule styling it. And it says, would you like to make a new rule? Yes, I would. And you can see this is actually my CSS sheet. It's kind of like opened up a little gateway to it, and it's pre-filled in my period, my footer credit, the curly braces, so I can get started super quick. It's the Quick Edit feature for Dreamweaver. And what I'd like to do is get him to go to the right and use something called float. Okay, and I'm going to get it to float to the right. Okay, Dreamweaver's filling it in. Remember, put your semicolon in. While I'm also there, I'll get it to do the width, 40%. Okay, and whenever you're playing around with float, so we've floated to something to the right, often you have to change the position, okay, to relative, just so he's relative to his buddies around him. Let's check him in a browser. Hey, there he is, on the right. So he's floated to the right, which is awesome, and that's a cool thing to know. And the other thing we learned was Quick Edit. Okay, so you can see here in source code, I am looking at my HTML, but actually working on my style sheet. So let's switch it over here to my CSS styles. You can see right down the bottom here is my footer credit. So I use Quick Edit a lot just to stop having to jump between these two separate files here. Let's look at our browser. Nice, there he is. So we've learned to float. We've learned how to use the wonderful Quick Edit. We've also used CSS to style not just the footer, but we used, remember, do the layout at the top with the navigation. We fixed them to the top and did padding. We also did along the top here, okay, we did our H1s and we did our paragraph text here and used CSS to format the text. Now, before we finish, let's remove that CSS style sheet completely. So we can see it as it was when we started this video. Remember when it was all just plain HTML? So here in my HTML, I'm going to find my style sheet, select it all, delete it, jump into the browser, and here it is again. It's pretty amazing what you can do with CSS, right? We haven't changed the HTML one little bit during this video. It's still exactly how it was when it began. We've got our navigation, our headings, my images, but we've been able to significantly change it and alter it using lovely old CSS. Now this is just a brief introduction to CSS. There are more videos available here that go into a little bit more depth. But for now, my friends, it's time to start using your great new CSS web skills to make your own beautiful web pages.